Hi guys, this is Taylor and I'm here today to talk about everything that I read in January. Reading-wise, January was an okay month, but everything outside of the realm of reading in January was an absolute shit show. I don't know a single person who had like a great January. So here's to all of us, and I hope that February gets better somehow. I read 6 things in January and one of them was a reread, and I'm just gonna get this out of the way because I don't really like to talk about rereads that much, and this is also a major part of my 2025 wrap-up video. It's Nana Volume 2 by Ai Yazawa, and this is the 25th anniversary edition. These editions are currently being published and new ones are coming out every couple of months. And Volume 2 is a bind-up of the 3rd and 4th volumes of the original English publication. I became obsessed with Nana last year, so this was an easy 5-star rating for me. If you love classic manga but somehow haven't read Nana, I really recommend seeking it out because they're becoming more and more accessible, and it's just a wonderful manga that is aimed at a slightly older age than like the typical manga reader demographic, which I really appreciate as a... I won't say it. I won't say it. And from here on out, I'm gonna go from least to most enjoyed, but this month, like, least enjoyed didn't mean I didn't enjoy it. So the first book I want to talk about is I Deliver Parcels in Beijing by Anyan. This is a memoir of the author moving around to various blue-collar jobs in various cities in China. Most notably, he delivered packages for a big shipping company, but he also talks about doing back-breaking work at a shipping distribution center, and he worked at a convenience store and things like that. I found his account to be enjoyable to read. It's just written in this very like cut and dry, mostly chronological way. Like, here's how I got hired, here's what the onboarding process was like, here's what I first thought of my coworkers. And the best part of this for me was not like the chronological rundown, but rather like the standalone experiences that he pulls from his time over the years, like the super difficult customers, the really nice customers, and the stories of the really physically demanding work that he did at the distribution center, which I think it's really important to read about. Overall, I was just wanting a little bit more context. Like, I was maybe wanting to read about like the economic situation in China that connects all of these blue-collar jobs. I think a few statistics alongside his lived experiences would have made for a better read for me. And since this wasn't originally intended for an international audience, I think even like a translator's note with like some statistics and context on the economic situation in China could have benefited it. But overall, I liked this, and I think if it sounds interesting to you, you should give it a shot. And overall, I gave this like 3 stars. Next up, I want to talk about Witch Hat Atelier by Kamome Shirahama. I read volumes 1 and 2 this month. I'm still definitely trying to find my groove and my niche with manga, and this didn't like hit it out of the park the way that like Nana did for me, but I was charmed by it and I put the 3rd one on hold. This is about a young girl named Coco who has always been really drawn to magic, but magic can only be done by witches and she is not a witch, until she learns of a massive secret and realizes that magic might not be that unattainable for her. This had a bit of a slow start for me, but once the plot got going, I found it pretty compelling. I can't say that anything here like blew my mind, but I think it is fun and engaging, and it reminded me a lot of Call the Name of the Night, but I preferred this one because this is definitely more plot driven. So like I said, I enjoyed this, and I think it's definitely something fun that I can reach for when I need a distraction. So I gave both volumes 1 and 2 3 stars, and I'm looking forward to picking up volume 3. Next up, I finally read Moon of the Crusted Snow by Waubgeshig Rice. Can we see this at all? It kind of looks like we can. I wanted to wait to be snowed in to read this book, and like much of the country experienced a pretty significant snowstorm that lasted for like 2 straight days, and that's exactly when I read this. This is about a First Nations reservation in a northern-ish part of Canada that suddenly gets cut off from the rest of the world. They have no power, no cell service, no radio, and this is just as winter is starting to set in. And this of course causes tensions, but it also causes the community to come together a bit. It causes the community to question whether or not they can go back to living off the land the way that their ancestors did, and if there will be collateral damage. It also brings up the role of white people on First Nations and Native territories, and if and when their presence is appropriate. I definitely enjoyed this read. It was very fitting to read while snowed in. I liked the storyline, and I really thought it brought up a lot of important questions and conversations. The main issue that I had with this was that the writing style was just not my favorite, and that's fine. For me, I actually think this book could have benefited from being a little bit longer. I think allowing the story to have a little bit more length could have allowed for a little bit less of the story to be told to us as readers and a little bit more to be shown to us. But I enjoyed this. It was very atmospheric to read in January, and I recommend this especially if you're wanting to diversify your reads, because I think everyone can benefit from reading more from First Nations and Native authors. So I gave this like a 3 or a 3.5 star rating. And my final read for January was of course my favorite thing that I read this month, and that was Vigil by George Saunders. I am a George Saunders fangirl, so this was one of my most anticipated reads of 2026. Spoiler, I did not love this, but I did really enjoy it. And I went with the audio on this one because everybody loves George Saunders' full cast audiobook, and it was super duper fun. This is about a predeceased being whose job it is to comfort dying people in their final moments, and her charge in this novel is like an oil tycoon who has absolutely no regrets about the way that he lived his life. And throughout this novel, our main character is trying to convince this guy that he actually was a pretty bad guy and that he should feel bad. Another component of this novel that I felt was the more compelling part for me is that our main character is recounting her own life, reliving her death, and really struggling with missing her humanity. And like I said, I don't think this was like the best George Saunders work I've ever read. I think he is like the short story wizard for me, but I think this is a really solid effort. It's biting, it's kind of fun and silly, while also simultaneously being quite sad and obviously having a message. But like I said, I think I actually got more out of what I believe was intended to be kind of the side plot, because I think the main plot is pretty transparent in its messaging, and that felt like a little flat for me. And I also know that George Saunders is like fully capable of just like totally gut punching me with emotions, and that didn't happen here. But this is a solid 4 stars for me, and I really do recommend the audiobook. It's super well done. So that was what I read in January. Let me know what you thought of my thoughts, or what you thought of what you read this month, and I hope we all have a much better February, and I will talk to you soon. Bye!